Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is called, My Dad's Ex-Girlfriend Robs Us, and He Gets Even. Hi everyone, I haven't been on Reddit for more than a week, but I had someone say I should tell my story here, so please don't criticize it too much as I am not the best at writing. Okay, for reference, I was a young teen around 14 or 15. My father had a rough time with women and always seemed to have bad luck with them, until he started dating an old high school friend that we'll just call Susan. She was a cool woman. I was glad my dad found love in his life again, he deserved it. Susan was kind to me and even had 2 kids of her own, one younger and one older than me, but they didn't come around often. My dad dated her off and on for over a year, thinking he was super lucky. But soon we started having problems that escalated until the breaking point. I'll start from the beginning, and you'll see that I'm not lying when I say that Susan is an evil woman. Susan is a struggling drug addict that my dad knew about and had tried to help her through it, but she was always fighting him on it and had moments of pure rage. I hate when people yelled and fought with each other. I'm kinda emotional and I start getting weepy. IDKY. Anyway, my dad had a bad accident when he was hunting behind our woods behind our house. He was coming down and halfway down he fell and perfectly landed one of his legs on a rock that completely shattered his kneecap. He had to have surgery and go on heavy pain medication to keep him comfortable. 3 weeks and he came home but needed crutches for months and still had some heavy pain meds. Enter Susan, who was hardly around the hospital during my dad's entire stay. She would end up sneaking my dad's pills when he was asleep and just abuse them all the time. My dad ended up hiding them from her. That was the moment things went downhill. First she tried to convince me to steal my dad's meds so she could take them, saying that, if 2 or 3 go missing he won't know. I was appalled at what I was hearing. I refused and I thought her behavior was out of line, but my dad still believed she was a good person. Next, I have to admit that I suffer from low self-esteem and emotional anxiety from time to time. It was a while after the pill issue that Susan came and was trying to convince me to run away from my dad because he didn't care about me anymore. I was in a bad time in my life, and she succeeded in making me do just that. I did come back afterwards when I was found on the road by police. She was turning me and my dad against each other and got us literally yelling at each other. But we resolved this, and after some reflection we both realized that for all the major problems we have had happen, Susan was the instigator. My dad promised she'd be gone soon. And wouldn't you know it? Dad found out she was actually cheating on him. He walked in on her and her ex when he went to her place to break up. It made his choice a lot easier. Susan was gone. We finally had our lives back. Or so we thought. One day I came home from school and went into our house to find that it was completely trashed. I was shocked and confused and didn't know what was going on. My dog was acting normal and happy to see me, but everything was wrecked. I looked around and saw my Xbox 360 and we were stolen along with most of my games. My dad's room was also in tatters, so I decided to call my dad to ask what was going on. A family friend actually showed up during this and looked around too. My dad rushed home and was absolutely furious when he went inside. Our friend left and Dad checked around and noticed that only his pills were stolen from his room. We knew instantly that it was Susan. Our dog was acting normal because she knew Susan and was used to her. That's how she didn't get mauled by our dog and was able to rob us. Instantly my dad began to figure out what to do. I suggested that we call the police, but my dad refused. He called dibs. Being ex-military, even with a bad leg, made him a dangerous man to duck over. He found out that her ex, a Russian dude that's a wannabe gangster, helped rob us. My dad acted as swiftly as possible, and to be honest, I was scared. I thought he'd literally kill the both of them. It took 4 days for my dad to find out where they were staying. They moved in together at his house. My dad told me to stay home and drove over there at night with a baseball bat and his favorite pocket knife. Around midnight he came back, and I saw stuff in the back of our car. He told me that my consoles were sold away, and he couldn't have gotten them back. I asked what happened and he sat me down. He had gone down and found that both of them were there that night, and he honked his horn real loud, and they came out. Susan didn't recognize the car in time and her ex, let's call him Tim, got scared to death as my dad got out, bat in hand. Now this dude was supposed to be a badass gangster that would beat anyone down. And my dad was only just recovered enough to not need crutches anymore. So, in favor of odds, you'd expect Timmy to be itching to fight, knowing he'd win. But he caved in. My dad had a reputation of being the guy who'll beat down anyone who ducks with our family. He has beaten a few people around town that has hurt our friends or family. Tim apparently got on his knees and begged for his life. And that he'd do anything. And my dad, being the saint he is, told him to strip and give him all his clothes. Tim couldn't tear them off fast enough. Susan was about to go onto the house, presumably to call the police, when my dad told her not to move, or he'd beat Tim to death. He grabbed the clothes and told them to never come near our house again. Or else. He also assured them that he'd be back. I was shocked, but glad my dad didn't kill anyone. He told me that I wasn't going to school tomorrow because I was coming with him to Susan's house. So, the next day at noon we show up and Tim immediately him in his bedroom. My dad told me to get the big cardboard box he loaded up yesterday. We went in and he told Susan that he was taking their DVD collection. He went over and told me to take them all. Which I did, albeit reluctantly. I was a bit uncomfortable with the situation but was in awe of how badass my dad was being. He yelled for Tim and that dude ran right in like a dog and sat down on the couch. My dad told him he had a week to get out of our town. If he didn't he'd have a bad time. Tim agreed profusely, and my dad and me walked out. Before we left my dad stopped and turned to Tim and told him to strip again and give him his clothes. I watched slack-jawed as Tim hurriedly pulled his clothes off and gave them to my dad. We eventually went home. They never called the cops. Too afraid I guess. Of the authorities or my dad, I don't know which. But we haven't heard from them since. Good riddance. Thank you for reading my first post on here. The next one is titled, Wife, 25F. Almost cheated on me, 27M. And not sure where to go from here. So, I'll try to add any relevant details before what happened. My wife and I met 6 years ago and within months had an unexpected pregnancy. This progressed the relationship rather quick, and we got married less than a year after our daughter was born because I felt like that was what we were supposed to do. Things have been pretty good for the most part, but last year I left my job to get an internship while going back to school full-time. My wife hasn't worked since our daughter was born, who is now 5, and we have a 2-year-old as well. The whole time we have been together she has dealt with depression and has her ups and downs. About 2 months ago she started to change, she was working out daily and started to become more distant with me. I've been really stressed with working 35 hours a week while full-time in an engineering school, and recently my doctor diagnosed me with depression and anxiety. Hopefully that's enough backstory. Onto the current situation. A couple weeks ago she started going onto Omegle and other similar apps. Last Friday she was supposed to go hang out and stay over for a girls' night with a friend of hers, but it turns out she met up with some people with those chatting apps. I was upset about this considering I am dealing with insecurity and depression and missing us being closer. Then this morning I noticed my car was almost out of gas when yesterday I had a quarter tank. I checked my dashcam and discovered she went out around 2:30 in the morning and met a guy from those chatting apps. The dashcam caught when she was leaving and the guy and her being flirty. He was asking for a kiss goodbye, but she wouldn't give him one, but said she'd see him again soon to hang out. When I confronted her, she said there's nothing wrong as she didn't physically cheat, but I still feel like I've been cheated on. I want to work on our marriage and get back to being happy together, but I don't know if she's on the same page. She says she isn't happy with herself and us getting tied down so young she never got to be adventurous, and our life has gotten boring. Reddit, is there any way we can get past this, or should I cut my losses and try to move on with a divorce and etc.? Even if we divorced as I'm in school with a reduced income and she's a stay-at-home mom, I don't know if we could even afford for one of us to leave. I'm just lost and looking for some advice as how to feel or get past this. A user in the comments said, I would say that the 2 kids are the only thing complicating this. As far as being a wife, she's obviously no good. She never got a chance to be adventurous. Translation. I wanna be a hoe. I don't know what you think of hoes, but there's no chance in hell that I would ever commit to one. If my wife said something like that, I'd tell her to GTF out. Whatever you do, do not under any circumstances, try to talk to her about what you can do to be better, and improve things, and make her not wanna be an easy girl. Another user said, chances are she already cheated, just not with that guy. Lawyer up, divorce her. Does it now cause if you land a big job she might be entitled to more of your money? See a lawyer now. This is over, she might start to beg and cry and blame you for the situation, but you have to divorce her. She will get scarred cause she would lose the security she gets from you. You are not her partner anymore but her caretaker, provider. The next one is titled, Update, Wife, 25F. Almost cheated on me, 27M. And not sure where to go from here. Well, a lot has happened since my last post. I know it hasn't been a week, but it feels like it's been months. I should have listened to most of the comments and ended everything immediately, but I tried to put the family first and forgive. Also, this is going to be long, so I'll try to keep just the relevant details. So, on to what happened. The night I posted, I decided to give her a chance to be sorry and was going to demand full transparency from that point on and no more passwords on phones that each other didn't know. Well, she knew mine, I just didn't know hers as of a month ago. I went back home that night just after midnight. She was surprised to see me and said we can talk the next day after some sleep. Right after she said this though, she got ready to leave, and said she made plans with some girls she met on those apps to hang out. I'll admit I wasn't in the right mindset at the time, but I got upset, even stood in front of her van in the street asking her not to go and to talk. She eventually left though, and I went to bed, waking up around 5 and asked her if she'd be home soon. She said she was on her way, and I decided I didn't want to see her, so I left the house. Her dad lives with us, so I wasn't leaving the kids alone. He was aware of the situation. Around 8, when he had somewhere to be, he had told me about. He called me saying she wasn't home yet and was worried about her being out with strangers. I started home, but in the meantime he had called 911 hoping to file a missing persons report in case something had happened to her. I told the officer what was going on with us and they said they wouldn't do anything about it. Around 10 I was getting more upset because she told our daughters she would take them to Thanksgiving lunch when the plan was for me to be away getting space. I had started to go through her laptop and tablets to see if I could find out what was going on and found her location through the Find My iPhone app from her tablet. It was about half an hour away, so I drove up there because the girls were upset asking where their mom was. When I was driving, she texted me saying she would be home at 2, she just needed some time away. I got there before I read the text and tried calling to see if she would at least come say hi to the girls. But it was an apartment complex, and I couldn't tell which unit she was in. I went back home and around 5 or so when she still wasn't home, I decided I had enough. I had found more evidence of her flirting with guys on her devices in this time as well. At this point I talked to my sister, and she said I didn't deserve this, and I should get the girls out of the situation and stay with her about half an hour away. We went and had Thanksgiving dinner with her in-laws, which the girls appreciated. Then we stayed the night there. It was almost 8 before my wife called asking where we were, saying I need to bring the girls home because she wanted to see them, but I said not that night. Told her I'd bring them home in the morning for her to see them. Well, I woke up at 7 and checked our home security cams and saw that she had left just after midnight, and still wasn't home. I went ahead and went back home to get a few more things from the girls, and finally around 11 she called. I told her the girls were upset she wasn't home to see them, and to consider this over. She called me 100 times after trying to get the girls, texting that she was gonna take full custody for this. She even drove to my mom's trying to find them there. That evening I decided I couldn't just stay in my sister's game room with the girls for however long it took for a divorce, and we came back home. Later that night after the girls went to sleep we sat down to talk, and even though I really shouldn't have, I told her I could try to work to save our marriage if she was willing, honestly for our daughter's sake, but she said she needed space and we should separate but stay in the same house parenting together. I accepted it at that point and went to sleep. Saturday started out quiet, until I got onto one of her devices and Safari was open. Curiosity getting the better of me, and I checked the search history. It was full of stuff about being addicted to a new partner, how to give a better blowjob, and others mainly about how to please a guy. This was after her saying nothing physical was going on and she just needed separation for a while to work on herself. This pissed me off and I went to a friend's house to vent for a bit, before coming back because she had an urgent care appointment because she had an infection and had to be gone for a while. That night after the girls went to bed we talked again and I told her separation wouldn't work for me, I was going to pursue a divorce after all. She again left saying she would only be gone 2 hours, it was 10 o'clock at night when she said this, and that she would get the girls up and ready for going to church in the morning. Wouldn't you know she never did come back that night, and I got the girls up and took them to church then lunch at their grandma's afterwards. The whole time the older one was asking about where mom was, and it really hurt to hear that. She came home around 2 and had a milkshake for the older daughter to suck up to her I'm assuming. After the kiddo went to her room to watch TV and drink her shake and the younger one was napping, she asked to talk in our bedroom. She tried to admit how much she messed up, and that she was sorry, and she wanted another chance. I told her that wouldn't be happening. I had proof of her affairs and her leaving her daughters consistently the past few days and a divorce was coming. She locked the door to the room and from what I can tell tried her best attempt to seduce me, but I was having none of it. She then said she was going to kill herself, that she had nothing to live for and the girls would get a stepmom who would be better than her. I left the room and she left not long after. She headed out the front door saying she'd walk to the highway and throw herself in front of a car. I called the cops and followed her in my car, honestly not wanting the mother to my daughters to be dead. At this point I fully believed she had come down with bipolar disorder. When she saw me following she turned around and said she'd just do it when I went to sleep that night. Cops came out. I had been recording when she said she was going to kill herself and showed them. Then they talked to her for about 30 minutes while I waited outside before they walked her out in cuffs and took her to a mental health hospital. My family all came over and brought dinner and helped me clean up the house a bit after this, as it had been getting quite messy on top of the chores she never does. Just 3 hours after they took her away, I saw on her tablet that she was messaging a friend asking to be picked up because she was let out. My family left before she got home and like I expected she pissed at me for calling the cops and getting her sent there, but mostly just spent time with the girls and got them to bed. That night we talked again, and I told her she needs to get help, for her sake and for our daughters. She agreed that she was mentally unwell and that she would get help. She said she had gone to tell the guy the night before that she didn't want to be around him anymore, as she wanted to be with him but knew it was wrong. Still not sure that they were already sleeping together but didn't care too much to argue it at this point. I tried to be a good person and told her I could wait a little to divorce her. She was starting a new job Tuesday she said, and with finals in 3 weeks I wanted to wait anyways. She could also keep the health insurance from my job for a little bit in order to afford therapy. Today, Monday, I took off work to do some errands and was at the house mostly. She was acting okay, somewhat sick because of the infection she had but alright, saying she was ready to get therapy and start medication to get well. She said she had to pick up her schedule from work and then later added they may need to do some orientation type stuff. Also said she'd stop by the grocery store on the way back to get some fresh fruit for the girls to eat during the week. I believed she wanted to get better, so I gave her my spare car key and the debit card for groceries. Her dad had already taken the van she was using away as it was his, and he didn't like her behavior. I was on Zoom doing a group project when she left, and I looked out the window as she left and noticed she went the wrong direction for the place she was supposed to be working. 15 minutes later, as my Zoom ended, I got her device, and even though she turned off her phone's location after I first used to find my iPhone to find her, she took a different tablet that had it on. She drove straight to the apartment of the guy from a few days ago, who I am pretty sure she has been spending most of her time with. I had enough and got a ride up there, took my car, and cancelled the debit card, called her as I was about home but straight to voicemail. She had left the house just before 6 and from what she said shouldn't be gone more than an hour, maybe 1.5 hours, but it was almost 9 p.m. when she texted saying she had just gotten to the store and would be home soon, but the GPS showed she was still at his apartment. 15 minutes later she calls asking where the car was, figuring out that I had seen through her lies and got it. After playing dumb for a minute, asking how she lost it at the grocery store, told her she could sleep where she was as she has been doing every other night. She came home an hour later after getting a lift and tried saying she actually had an interview at a place near there and had stopped by for a minute, and her text meant she was about to go to the store, not that she was actually there. Told her I saw on the GPS that she drove straight to the guy's apartment. Then she said okay, it was all payback for sending her to the crazy house. I walked away from her, and that's where I am at now. Going to call an attorney for a consultation tomorrow, but I really don't want to leave the kids at home with her while I go talk to one tomorrow. I have some family that could maybe help with the retainer, so hopefully I can get things started soon. Sucks having to do this with finals right around the corner, but I can't trust having her around the kids anymore with how much and how easily she lies about everything. This ended up being crazy long, so sorry I didn't post a couple updates in the middle. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.